Back on record in case people versus Brandon Martin. That's RIF 150-6112. Record should reflect Mr. Martin as president of the council. People are present. All members of the jury and alternates are present. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
We're all ready to get started. Next witness.
Thank you. We'd like to call Melody Martin. Melody, come on up. Follow the gentleman in the uniform.
You do solemnly state that the evidence you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, so help me God.
In your mask, just a microphone so they can hear it.
Thank you.
State and spell your first and your last name.
Melody Martin, MELODY, MARTIN.
Martin, make sure you continue to use that microphone throughout your testimony. Make sure that you give us verbal or oral answers to the questions, yes, no, or whatever you want to tell us, not just a nod of the head or a shake of the head. And then lastly, make sure that you wait until the lawyer is done asking his question before you respond. In other words, not talking at the same time. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting, Melody. Over the last 3 weeks, these people have gotten to know your family pretty well, but you still need to introduce yourself. So you are related to Mike Martin how?
Michael Martin was my husband for 28 years.
Okay. And then there's your oldest son, his name?
Sean Martin.
Just testified this morning.
Yes, he did.
And then your youngest son, sitting right here in the courtroom?
Yes, Brandon Martin.
Okay. When did you and Mike meet?
Oh, 1980. We knew each other about 35 years total.
Okay. And then what year was John born?
1991.
Right. This exhibit Q. Who's that bottom center?
Bottom center, the pregnant one?
Yeah, who's that?
That would be me.
Okay. And what's in your belly right there?
Brandon. Brandon's in my belly.
Okay. I'm looking at those pictures. Looks like he was newly born.
Yeah, the top one was the first day he was born. The middle one there to the right was his picture in the hospital. And then the bottom right is the first time I'm holding him.
You said the top right's first picture, but I'm going to dispute that with you. What do we have in
the
bottom left there?
You're right, Chris. The ultrasound of Brandon.
Just so the record's clear, this is PP. So that's Brandon in your belly there?
Yes, it is.
Then at the top, you've written first year, so taking it, these are young baby pictures.
Correct.
Safe to say, this picture here in the center, brothers?
Yeah, Sean and Brandon, one of the first pictures we had taken of them together.
This is XX. Like Halloween, is that right?
Yes, Halloween. Brandon is in the far left in the tiger outfit with Shelley, a very good dear friend of ours who is no longer with us. Top is Sean with his favorite clerk at Albertsons. And then the bottom right is Brandon and myself.
This is T. Who are these two good-looking guys?
Mm-hmm. Michael and Brandon.
You know about how old Brandon was?
He was walking, so 1.5, maybe 2 years old.
Back then, back at that age, when the kids are still in diapers and they're eating at night, what kind of a husband / what kind of a dad was Mike to the boys when they were little, when they were real little?
You know, we were very unique. Mike and I were married 4 years before we had children, and we made a promise to each other. We said that one of us would always be there, no matter what. My parents didn't live nearby. His parents were in San Bernardino, so kind of difficult to have family watch your kids as they're growing up. So we did that. Mike was Mr. Mom all the way until probably middle school for Brandon, or maybe freshman in high school. Mike worked at night, and I worked during the day. Very loving, nurturing. It changed a lot of diapers. Very good dad, very nurturing, and very good dad.
This is self-explanatory, but for the record, what's going on here? This is JJ.
The boys are just enjoying themselves in a bubble bath. Michael made sure that their lives were enjoyable, that there was a lot of joy, a lot of smiling. I remember people telling us that I don't think I remember your boys not smiling, and that's Michael. That's Mike's personality, and it's coming out in the boys here. He was an actor and a singer until the boys got a little older, under 3 or 4 years old.
And when you see the boys there, you say Mike's coming out. You see your husband's face in them. Absolutely. We've heard tell of family trips. This is you. What's going on here?
Oh, one of our favorite places. As you can imagine, it's tough enough to raise a family. It's not cheap. It costs money. So we really didn't spend, or didn't have the money to spend on big vacations to travel. So we went camping, and this is the boys camping. At the top left there is Brandon and his cousin Chad. That's Rick's son, his youngest boy. We did a lot with Chad and then his daughter Brooke, very, very close to the two of them. They're very close in ages. The top right is Michael and Brandon. I think, I'm not sure who tangled the line there for the fish, but I think Dad was trying to show Brandon how to fish there. And the very bottom one, a little hard to make out, but it looks like it was maybe 5 or 6 of the boys up at Lake Tahoe camping. Sean's in there, Brandon. I can't make out all of them.
Do you know, were you the photographer in most of these?
Definitely, I think the one of Michael and Brandon I took. I'm not sure about the one of Chad and Brooke. Chad's mom enjoyed taking a lot of pictures as well, Tootie. She camped with us quite frequently as well, and she loved taking pictures of the kids and just kind of recording their childhood together. She did the page, actually. This is Tootie's page. So I did not take either of those pictures. I just realized the s'mores and Charlie Brown. Tootie was the craft person, and she made that page for us.
This is M. Thank you. M as in Mary. Thank you. What are we looking at here? No.
Well, the picture that stands out to me is Michael and Brandon, kind of hamming it, bottom center, hamming it up for the camera. And then, of course, the top right was Sean and Brandon and their first dog. I'm sorry, the dog in Corona, Henry. And the left is with the neighbor boys. And bottom left is Brandon, I think trick-or-treating. So that same picture before where he's the tiger. Bottom right, far right is Brooke, Brandon and Sean's cousin, and Rick's daughter.
This is K. Like we've got a couple different venues here. Where are we?
Yeah, so top right, so you see the boys and their cousins. You got Sky and Sean, Brooke and Chad. Brooke and Matthew and Brandon and Chad sitting on our couch in our living room in Corona on Winthrop Drive. Bottom right is Brandon, just being funny, just being a kid, holding some type of food up. Top left is Brandon and Michael again. They had a very special relationship. As you can tell from the pictures, they enjoyed being around each other. And the bottom left is Vegas as well. The four of us, the first trip we ever took the boys on, because we didn't want to take them too early, because that was Mike and I's place to get away. We enjoyed, playing roulette and some blackjack. So that was their first trip, and we documented that through that picture.
And talking to your other family members and looking at that picture in the upper right, it seems like there was always a lot of cousins around. Is that right?
Yes, there were on both sides of the family, on both sides, and a lot with Brooke and Chad, because Sean was 6 months older than Brooke, and Brandon was, I think, almost a year older than Chad. And they enjoyed spending time, spent the night there. We babysat for each other. We let them take the mattress on the staircase, and they flew down the staircase. They just enjoyed each other's company, and both Rick and Tootie were very gracious to my boys in the time we spent.
Did the cousins all get along?
Yes.
Sean, in particular, did he get along with the cousins?
Yes.
Brandon, did he get along with the cousins?
Yes.
This is Exhibit GG. What do we have there in the upper left with those crazy hats?
This was a picture taken, I think it was kindergarten, maybe first grade. They were doing some type of play in the auditorium at Foothill Elementary.
Looks like typical, like you said, Brandon in the right-hand corner there, being Brandon?
Yeah. The top right?
Bottom right.
Bottom right. That's Sean and Brandon playing around at Christmas time.
I didn't see in the back, so is Sean in the back there?
Yeah, Sean's in the back, putting his loving arm around Brandon.
Loving arm? Looks like
loving
a
arm
to me. I don't know.
Well, if you have siblings, you know that it's out of love.
And we know you have a lot of siblings.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Bottom left, what's going on there?
Street hockey. So I was very fortunate where I work. A lot of the hockey sticks that went unused, the equipment guy would give them to us so my kids could play street hockey, and the neighbor boys as well. I think we've got 3 neighbor boys there. Tanner and Trevor, who lived right next door. I think it's Chris in the red hat. Brandon has got his back to us, bending down like he's at center ice, about ready to have the puck drop. And then Sean is in the background there.
Is that common to see boys in the street playing various sports at various times when the boys were growing up? Absolutely.
We loved being outside, Michael and I. And I think our boys got that passion for being outside as well. And we wanted the boys to have a childhood. We did not want them to grow up fast. We wanted them to be kids. We wanted them to play and enjoy things as a kid and not think about adult stuff.
Exhibit BB. Heard about Brandon's baseball prowess. Is that Brandon there?
Yes, it is.
Do you know about what year we're at here?
Yes, I do. He played a few years with the Corona Yankees. He was exceptional, very humble. He was gracious enough to let me coach. I myself had some athletic ability, and I enjoyed coaching both Brandon and in Sean and in different sports. Brandon stood out at that age, and his teammates loved being around him. They loved playing with him. It's true what they say, an athlete, when you play with them, they make everybody else around them better. I mean, that's what Brandon did. He brought that out in people, just naturally, and Sean as well.
So it sounds like growing up, sounds like you had a happy family unit, yes?
Yes,
You guys would go on vacations together,
yes, we did.
not only the four of you, but with the extended families as well?
Yes,
You had your house in Winthrop, right?
correct. We lived there almost 20 years. We believed in stability. We wanted to give that to our kids, so we moved there before Sean started kindergarten, before he was 5.
And it certainly sounds like both your boys excelled in athletics.
Yes, they did.
I mean, Sean gets a scholarship to Oregon State, right?
Yes, he does, for football.
Brandon signs the contract, right?
Correct.
Growing up during this time, describe the relationship between Brandon and Sean.
Very fun-loving, very competitive. They spent a lot of time together, whether it was playing video games or out on the street playing field hockey in the backyard. In the backyard, we had a very small playhouse that the boys and the neighbors would get on and just kind of pretend like they were looking over the whole neighborhood. Very loving. They cared a lot about each other.
How about the relationship between Brandon and his dad? How would you describe that?
Brandon loved his dad very much, and it was reciprocated. Michael loved Brandon very much. Michael was the type of dad who made it a priority that he spent time with Brandon as well as Sean. It was important to him. He was there, like I said, during the day. So he spent a lot of time with them. There are a lot of cartoons. I'd come home sometimes and I'd be like, how long have you been watching cartoons? Right? Did they get their homework done? Or very nurturing too. Michael, when I met Michael at 19, I thought he was the worldly man, most worldly man I'd ever met. He knew so much about life. And he passed those lessons on to the kids wherever he could. He tried to incorporate that. And then, like I said, too, and as you've heard prior testimony about Michael, that very charismatic. He would light up a room. And when Brandon would walk into a room, Brandon lit up a room, just like Sean lights up a room. There was the light in their eyes and the light in their smile. I give that all to Michael. I give him credit for that, and then the Lord.
And then we've heard many people close to your family testify that at some point in time, that light in Brandon's eyes changed. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
We've heard tell that you brought him to see Dr. Valcu in January of 2013. Is that right?
That's correct.
What about Brandon prompted you to take him to see a psychiatrist?
Chris, it wasn't one thing, okay? It was a combination of things. Brandon, like I said, he lit up a room, and his eyes had a certain sparkle to them. I mean, you heard Emily testify earlier in how she loved his eyes. Some people have got that. You know, Brandon, his gift from God was his beautiful eyes. And they became very sad, very lost. He came to me one night when he had been living in Eagle Glen in December of 2012 and came up to my room because Michael was not able to climb the stairs at that time. And Michael had, due to his dialysis for over 10 years and high blood sugar, and not always taking blood pressure medication, he had about 6% left of his kidney. And he was on dialysis 3 times a week. And even, I think we heard statements that Brandon said, you know, Brandon was not aware of the dialysis. That's how lost he was. That's how much he didn't know what was going on with his father, who he dearly loved. He just knew he was going to the hospital. But Mike was going to dialysis 3 times a week.
Let me get you back. You were going to tell us a story about Brandon coming up to the room when he was living in Eagle Glen.
Yeah, he woke me up from my sleep. And he just came straight over to my bed, and I was like, Brandon, what's wrong? It wasn't usual for him to come over, you know, on such a late time during the night. And he was scared. He didn't know what was wrong, but he knew something was wrong. And he couldn't go back to the home in Eagle Glen. And I just told him to come over to the bed, to the side of the bed there, and just sit with me. And I just held him in my arms. And I just held him to tell him it was going to be okay.
And unfortunately, it was not okay. Is that right?
No, it wasn't.
Let me take you to the summer 2014. Brandon's now living at home with you two, is that right?
I'm sorry, when, Chris?
The summer of 2014.
Yes, he was at home living with us.
And was he doing anything? Was he going out with his friends? Was he going out and about? How was he acting?
No, I believe his social life was non-existent at that point. Brandon loved being around people. He loved just hanging out with his friends, playing video games, going up to the ballpark, you know, playing baseball, soccer, throwing a football. He was very social, reserved, you know, but he loved being around people. But when we would ask him, you know, well, do you want to see your friend? Do you want to go meet up? You know, who have you talked to? Who have you called? And he was just like, no, he just, there was no interest in that anymore. So that was a big sign to Michael and I, you know, regarding his personality and the change that he had. And by the summer of 2014, Chris, he was displaying other symptoms at that time as well. I've learned so much about mental illness and so much about a brain disorder, which Brandon has.
So why don't you tell us what you saw in the summer of 2014 that gave you pause, that gave you reason to worry?
At the dinner table. So Brandon lived with us. So after Sean had removed Brandon from the Eagle Glen home, and Brandon went the season of 2013 to play in Bowling Green, Kentucky. He came home and lived with us. So 2 years up to the tragedy in September of 2015. We supported him. We charged him no rent. He had money left to get food, get gas. But he would sit at the dinner table, and it was just an inappropriate laugh. You would just see his head kind of shaking and laughing, and when you'd ask him about it, Brandon, what's wrong? What did you hear? He's like, nothing. And we're like, well, it must be something because, you know, you're laughing, right? But he couldn't explain it. He didn't say why he was laughing, other than he was thinking, obviously, of something else that we didn't hear or see.
So eventually, in October of 2014, there was an incident with your husband. Is that right?
I believe it's September of 2014. It was almost exactly a year to the tragedy. Yes.
And that was the incident where he struck Michael while he was sitting in the chair. Is that right?
That's correct.
To your knowledge, was this provoked at all? Did Michael provoke him at all, or?
No, Michael was ambulatory, so Michael couldn't get around. He couldn't go to the bathroom on his own. He couldn't take a shower on his own. He couldn't get up and walk on his own. Michael sat in that recliner, all day, except when maybe healthcare people came, or he went to dialysis. Then he was out of that chair. But no, Michael would never provoke Brandon or do anything to Brandon to hurt him.
When this happened, did you ask Brandon, hey, why'd you hit your dad while he's sitting in the chair?
Of course.
And what did he say?
Brandon said Michael told him to.
Okay. So you eventually went to court, you and Michael, and applied for a restraining order, is that right?
Yes, we did.
Why did you do that?
At that point, Chris, it was as hard as it is to accept a brain disorder in your child, a mental incapacity to think on his own. We knew that something was seriously wrong, and that was a huge turning point. Because we had reached out to many family members to help and understand. We don't know what was going on. What's going on with Brandon, with his personality? Why does this humble young man all of a sudden think that just by videotaping his batting swing, that he didn't need to practice batting practice at all? He didn't need to go to the cages. He didn't need to take live batting from Rod Carew. All he needed to do was be up in his room and look at the closet and videotape himself. Same with grounders. Brandon was a phenomenal shortstop. And that was his reality. His reality had completely flip-flopped.
So
And
once you got that restraining order, where did Brandon live?
Michael and I, like I said, we knew that Brandon's disease was real, that he could not think for his own, and we did not want him out on the streets. I'm sorry, I don't understand.
I understand.
The question was whether.
Where did he live?
Where did he live?
Okay.
Yeah, where?
We put him up in a hotel for 3 weeks, I believe, in Corona.
Who paid for that?
I did,
Okay. And then
and Michael and I did.
who decided that it was okay now he could come home?
Michael and I.
In 2015, did you begin to see a pattern of when Brandon would act out and then calm down?
It started exactly then, Chris, in September of 2014. We started looking back and seeing this 90-day pattern. So September of 14, he acted out. He hit his father for no reason. He heard his father tell him to hit me, so he hit him. December, 90 days later, early Christmas morning, I was woken up, hearing them arguing, yelling, being very belligerent, which was totally not the Brandon prior to his diagnosis. Very angry. And then 90 days later, March of 2015, again, we started seeing the cycle all over again, the 90-day pattern. In between those 90 days, he was just quiet. He soft-talked, very monotone, very paranoid, though, because he would tape the refrigerator during the day to make sure nobody touched his food in the fridge. But when that 90-day mark hit, you didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know when the pin was going to drop. You didn't know what it was going to be like that night because, we locked our doors. We heard him yelling. We heard him arguing, but nobody was there. The The next day, we'd see punches in the walls in his bedroom. He broke the glass on the closet doors, as Sean testified, the 3 times of closing those doors. Brandon didn't remember those things when asked about them. The next morning, he would not recall them. And then, of course, 90 days later, again, from March, right in June.
So was there an episode in June?
There was an episode, I think it's February, March, where he was released from the Rays. And the employee assistant guy had come out in the summer of 14, along with his scout who had drafted him, along with his player agent, and myself and Michael.
Objection and response.
So this episode in June of 2015, is that what prompted you to go to see then Dr. Solomon?
I think so, because I travel a couple times in the year for work. And in June or July-ish, I can't remember exactly when, I had a meeting and talking with other people and people I trusted. And
Under response.
okay, let me say it again.
That's okay. I understand. I understand you have a lot to say.
There's a lot. I've been waiting 5 years.
I understand. So let's.
Thank you, Chris.
You know who
Thanks
we
for
haven't-
humanity.
You know who we haven't talked about? I want to shift gears here. We haven't talked about your brother. I mean,
Rick.
you lost your brother, right?
Yes, I did.
You lost your husband, right?
Yes.
And now this jury's going to decide whether you lose your son. Is that right?
Yes, Chris.
Tell us about your brother. Older? Younger?
Older brother?
Both you guys are from Missouri, but you both came out here?
Yes.
We heard his ex-wife testify. Sounds like you guys were close, you and your brother?
Yes, we were.
Do you know why was your brother at the house back on September 17th?
I spoke with Rick, if I recall correctly, earlier that day. And I had asked him for his help because
How come?
The decision to put Brandon on a 5150 hold was not my own. Rick's first wife, Robin, took me out of the home.
Objection and response.
So what prompted you to call Rick? Why did you call Rick?
Rick was part of the decision-making to put Brandon on a 5150 hold, even though I was against it, because we had no plans to happen to Brandon after the 5150 hold.
Okay. So how was it that Rick ended up at your house on September 17th? Why did you call him?
Because I was looking for help, but someone needed to go to the house to be with my husband, Michael, and also could he go and pick up Brandon?
So when you called Rick, did he volunteer to go to the treatment center to pick up Brandon?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And why didn't he do that?
I don't know.
Speculation.
That's true. Yeah, you don't know. You don't know why. That's true. Okay.
He was on his way.
Okay. You miss your brother, Rick?
Yes, I do.
Talk about your husband, Michael. You tell us you were together 35 years, married 28 years.
Yes,
Do you miss him?
absolutely.
How his death affected you?
Michael and I shared a very special relationship. We had breakfast every morning together. I made him lunch. on the days that he didn't have dialysis. We had dinner together every night. We talked about our day every day. We shared everything. We got each other. We got each other, and we were to be together for the rest of our lives, and our vows we took very seriously. I miss him terribly to share my days with.
So now your son, Brandon, he's essentially out of your life now, right, after that verdict last week? Question now, punishment. What do you want this jury to know when they're deciding whether to vote for life without parole or vote for execution?
First, I want you to know how sorry I am that Brandon has this brain disorder.
Objection.
We wouldn't wish that about anybody.
Objection, relevant.
What do you want him to know about Brandon and you and how this affects you? If Brandon was executed, how would that affect you?
I've had so much loss, so much death. It's so profound. I do not want to lose another member of my family. It would be a dagger in my heart.
Thank you, ma'am. Nothing further.
Yes, thank you.
Please take a moment when you need a break.
Give me 30 seconds.
If you need a break, I'll give you one.
No, I'm fine.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Martin.
Good afternoon.
On direct examination, that you mentioned that Brandon has a, quote, brain disorder, end quote, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. But we're not talking about, he hasn't had a CT scan that shows any sort of tumor or an MRI scan or anything like that, correct?
Are you talking about an exam, a medical X-ray or MRI?
Correct.
No, he was too paranoid to take one.
Well, I don't understand. So he was paranoid, and so the CT scan wouldn't work, or?
He was paranoid. Have you ever had a CT scan? It's very noisy, very scary. My husband had one, and...
Actually, that's the MRI scan. The CT scans are silent, right?
I don't know. I have not had a CT scan. I'm sorry. I just assumed they were noisy, like an MRI scan.
All right. So did Dr. Valcu, the psychiatrist, refer him to get a CT scan or an MRI scan?
I don't recall.
Okay. Well, you were here during the entirety of the penalty phase, correct?
Yes.
And there was no mention that Dr. Valcu had referred Brandon to go get a CT scan to rule out some sort of brain tumor, correct?
Yeah, I don't remember hearing that.
Okay. And then you saw Dr. Abrams testify, who's also a psychiatrist, correct?
Yes, he is a psychiatrist.
Okay. And then there was no indication in any of the jail records that he has a brain tumor or any sort of mass in his head, correct?
I'm not aware of any brain tumor.
Okay. All right. But your opinion that he has a brain tumor?
No. No. I don't think I ever said a brain tumor, sir.
Okay. You said that Brandon couldn't think on his own, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so let's talk about that. Back in 2015, there was an incident where he choked you, right?
He had both his hands on my neck, yes.
Okay, did he or did he not choke you?
He had 2 hands on my neck, sir.
I understand that. Did he choke you?
You could call that choking, I guess?
Okay, describe what he did. Other than he had 2 hands on your neck, did he squeeze?
He had 2 hands on my neck, just like this.
Okay, and indicating she had both hands on her neck. Did he squeeze?
I don't recall.
Did you have bruising after?
I think I had a slight bruising, yes.
Okay. So, all right. After that, there was a scissors incident with you and Sean, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you opened the door and he came towards you and he yelled and pulled out scissors, correct?
No.
Okay.
That's not the sequence of what happened.
Did he pull out scissors first?
No, he jumped out of bed.
Okay, jumped out of bed.
Then he grabbed a pair of scissors to protect himself.
Okay. And did he say that he was protecting himself?
His motions to me holding the scissors and me wanting him to get up and get dressed to go see a psychiatrist that day, in my mind, yes, he was protecting himself. He was not about to hurt me.
So him displaying scissors towards you was not at all threatening?
No.
Okay. Sean was there, right?
Sean came up. Yep.
Okay. And then he went down and he got a golf club?
Yes, he did.
To protect you?
Yes.
Because he was afraid that Brandon was going to hurt you?
Objection, speculation.
Well, okay. You said that there was no indication that Brandon was going to hurt you, right?
In my mind, my thoughts, Brandon was not going to hurt me. He was holding a pair of scissors in his hands to protect himself from us going after him.
But you don't know that. You're just speculating.
Living with him with 2 years, day to day, I had a pretty good insight to when he was being protective and worried about himself.
Okay. But you were speculating, correct?
As a mother, yes.
All right. Now, you mentioned that Brandon said that his dad told him, meaning Michael, told him to punch Michael. And that was your testimony on direct examination, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you tell that to Dr. Valcu? Or was this after?
See, that happened in September of 2014. I'm trying to remember the last date that we saw Dr. Valcu. I don't know if we saw her after that date or not, sir.
Whether you saw her after. So do you have any recollection of telling Dr. Valcu that?
Can you repeat that?
Do you have any recollection of telling Valcu that information?
I don't know if I did or not. I told a number of people. I don't know.
Okay. Well, you were here when she testified, correct?
Yes, I did. Yes, I was here.
And there was no indication that the punch, that there was a punch to Michael and that Brandon said, Dad told me to hit him during her testimony.
The indication was Brandon told me that himself.
Right, but I'm saying when Dr. Valcu testified, there was no evidence of that, correct?
I'm not sure he was seeing Dr. Valcu at the time, or even if we told Dr. Valcu. I don't recollect.
Okay.
But I told several people.
Okay, you told several people in your close family circle of friends?
Yes.
Okay. And if he was still seeing Dr. Valcu, you certainly would have told Dr. Valcu, correct?
I think I would have.
Okay. But he did see Dr. Solomon after that, right?
He saw Dr. Solomon in the summer of 2015 for psychotherapy.
Right. And did you tell Dr. Solomon about these past incidences of Brandon talking to himself?
Did I tell him about talking to himself? You know, I'm not sure. That's not the reason why I went to go see him, so I'm not sure if I would have told him that.
Well, Dr. Solomon is a psychologist, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and you met one-on-one with Dr. Solomon, correct?
That's what his note said, yes.
Well, is Dr. Solomon lying?
I don't think so.
Okay, so did you meet with him?
I don't recall. I met with him a few times. If he said it was by myself, then it must be by myself, yes. I believe him.
Well, I'm trying to get your testimony. So did you meet with them by yourself?
I believe so.
Okay. Now, when you met with Dr. Solomon, did you give him any indication that Brandon was hearing voices or talking to himself?
I don't know if I did or not.
Okay. Now, in fact, Brandon didn't talk to himself very often, did he?
Every day.
Every day?
Every day.
Okay. Did you find that to be unusual?
Yes, that's why he went to see three psychologists, psychologists, counseling, drug testing, blood work.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So you were very concerned about it, correct?
You're right. Yes, sir. I was very concerned.
And you would have told all those psychologists or psychiatrists about Brandon talking to himself, if that was true, correct?
No.
You would not have told them?
No. You must understand the reason that we reached out to him
To who?
was Dr. Solomon that we're talking about, the doctor. The reason I reached out to him was we wanted a combination of a psychiatrist and medication and a psychologist for talk therapy so that Brandon could open up to somebody, that the combination of those two things.
Okay, Ms. Martin, I'm going to stop you right there.
Uh-huh.
So you didn't think that a psychologist, it would be relevant, maybe even important information that Brandon talked to himself every single day and heard voices every single day?
He never asked me those questions, so no, I didn't. That wasn't the purpose of his visits.
Okay, and you didn't think it might be, so Dr. Solomon, one thing I might tell you is, by the way, my son is talking to himself and hearing voices every day. Do you think that might be important to know? If indeed that was true.
Again, I did not take my son to see a psychologist for a diagnosis on his mental illness.
Martin, the question is, you don't think that would have been important for Dr. Solomon to know, yes or no?
Objection, that's argument.
Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
Yes. Do you think the information about Brandon talking to himself or hearing voices every single day, if that was in fact true, would be important information for Dr. Solomon, yes or no?
I think that information would be important for Dr. Solomon to know by Brandon telling him.
But not by you, correct?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. Now, when you were interviewed by the Corona Police Department Detective Samano, correct?
I don't recall a name.
Okay. Well, were you interviewed by a detective?
Can you tell me when? A date? I think I was one date, one time.
September 18th, 2015.
So the day after the tragedy, I think I was at the police station for 5 or 6 hours that evening and into the next morning for hours being talked to.
Okay. But you were interviewed, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And you're a truthful person, right?
Yes, I am. I value the truth very much.
Okay. And so you were telling whichever officer or detective that was interviewing you the truth, correct?
Can you repeat that?
Whoever was interviewing you, you would have been telling the truth, correct?
Yes. There's
no reason for you to lie.
Correct.
All right. So when you were asked by the detective about whether, and I'm sorry, this would have been not Samano, it would be, my apologies, an investigator with the district attorney's office, Dan Binion. When you were asked by Investigator Binion about Brandon talking to himself, your response was, well, we all talk to ourselves, correct?
I don't recall. But I think that's a true statement. I think we all do talk to ourselves.
Okay. Well, so there wasn't anything unusual about Brandon talking then to himself?
Brandon talking to himself wasn't the normal you talking to yourself playing baseball or shooting a shot that you missed. It's very different.
Okay.
It's a conversation that goes on and on and on. It doesn't stop.
Right. But this is an interview that took place the day after the killings, correct?
Yes, when I was in total shock. Yes, you're right.
Right, but you're
Yes.
still telling the truth, correct?
Yes, to the best of my ability.
Okay. And you were asked if Brandon ever talked to himself. And your response is, I think we all talk to ourselves.
Yes, probably, if that's what the record says.
Okay.
That's a truthful statement.
And then Investigator Binion said, well, I'm talking about like a bizarre manner. Did he ever tell you he was hearing voices or anything? And you mentioned one outburst, and you said you don't know if he was talking to himself or yelling at somebody. Is that right?
I don't recall.
Okay, well, would it refresh your memory if you looked at page 27 of
Sure.
your interview?
Sure, right here.
It's right there.
Page 27.
Yes.
And what line?
30 to 34.
Okay, I see that.
Okay, does that refresh your memory?
It refreshes my memory here looking at the words, yes.
Okay. All right, and so when Investigator Binion asked you if Brandon ever talked to himself, you said, well, we all talk to ourselves, right? And then he said, well, I'm talking about like in a bizarre manner of some sort. And you mentioned that he had an outburst.
He had outbursts. Yes.
Okay. You said he had an outburst. I don't know if he was talking to himself or yelling at somebody, but it was just him.
Correct.
Right? Remember the, okay, so there was some testimony about Brandon being in the kitchen and then all of a sudden him saying, why are you guys falling down? And he thought he was floating above everybody. Do you recall that?
Yeah, he was hallucinating.
Okay. Now, you actually volunteered that information to the investigator, correct?
I don't know if I did or not, sir.
Okay. Did you tell the investigator that you thought Brandon was high on marijuana when that hallucination happened?
I don't recall if I said that or if that was my guess. I don't recall.
Okay. Well, you said, I don't know if he was high on marijuana. I don't know. Right?
What page is that, sir?
Page 28, lines 28 and 29.
So what about seeing things? Yes.
Okay. So Brandon was abusing marijuana and other drugs during this time.
All I am aware of, and I've not seen, but I had found some marijuana in his bedroom on a couple occasions.
Okay. And you know that he was diagnosed with marijuana abuse as well, correct?
No, I was not aware of that.
Okay. So that was not information that was given to you?
It was not.
Okay.
I was not expecting a diagnosis.
You wanted Brandon to go to drug rehab, though.
I did not.
You did not.
I did not.
There was no ultimatum that Brandon either go to drug rehab or leave the house.
Not that I'm aware of. I was not at the house.
Okay. What about on the day of September 18th? I'm sorry, September 17th. You received a call from ETS, correct?
That's correct.
And that call was to let you know that Brandon was coming home, right?
One of the calls, yes. Mhm.
Okay, so you received a call about Brandon coming home, correct?
That is correct.
And you were a little frustrated because you were looking for a facility to place Brandon. Right?
I was looking for a mental health facility for him to treat his diagnosis. Yes, I was.
Okay, and that facility that you located that Live Oaks?
I don't recall the name of it. Does it have a city?
Or, I'm sorry, The Oaks. The Oaks. You're coordinating having Brandon go to The Oaks. Is that correct?
I don't recall the name. Is there a city? I had asked.
In Tennessee.
Yeah, outside of Nashville, Tennessee, I found a place for mental health inpatient services.
Well, in fact, The Oaks is a drug treatment. It's a drug rehab program.
I wasn't aware of that.
Well, how did you find The Oaks?
Oh my gosh, I called so many calls, so many places. I was working with, I don't know if it was the social worker at ETS or if it was just the nurse who does the releasing paperwork. I had asked her and plead with her to keep Brandon, that he needed to stay there. He couldn't come home. My family had convinced me that that was not a good idea for our safety. And I asked for an inpatient mental health facility.
To the ETS person?
Yes.
Okay. Well, according to your statement to Detective Griffiths, Griffiths, you looked up The Oaks on the internet, right?
It could have been. I was frantically looking everywhere for a place for Brandon, and I called the place and spoke with them, and they were one of the only national places to deal with mental health inpatient, because California had none.
Okay, but The Oaks is actually a drug rehab.
I'm not aware of that. I was not aware of that, sir.
Okay. Well, if you Googled it or if you looked on the internet, you would have learned that information, correct?
Objection, assumes facts not yet.
I don't recall.
You said that you may have looked on the internet to try to find...
I don't remember. I don't recall. I was in such a panic, and I was told the night before Brandon was being admitted.
Okay.
I was told it was going to be 72 hours. Then it switched.
You didn't even want Brandon to go to ETS in the first place.
I was afraid once Brandon was released from ETS that what was the next step? What was going to happen? His disease was not going to go away. We had to have a plan. So no, I did not want to do that hurriedly without a plan.
So the plan was to beat him up?
Not my plan, sir.
Not your plan?
No.
Okay, but you're upset that he went to ETS?
I was upset he went to ETS because there was no follow-up thought about what happens after he gets released.
Okay, and so if not ETS, well, let's go back to not your plan.
Uh-huh.
You had family members over. You knew what the plan was, correct?
I knew what my plan was, yes.
But so were you just cavalier about allowing your family members to come over and, quote, beat his ass, end quote?
Objection, argumentative, cavalier.
Okay, so you went to go get pizza with Robin during the time that Brandon was going to get some sense knocked into him. Is that right?
No. I think the plan changed, sir, before I left to get pizza. I never would have left my son there to get beat up.
Okay. But it wasn't you that made the plan change. It was somebody else.
That's correct, sir. I was not involved in that plan, per se.
So, going back to when you served or had served on Brandon a restraining order after Brandon struck Michael. You didn't look for some sort of mental health facility at that point. Is that correct?
I don't recall looking for a place then. I just hit Mike and I that this was serious.
So you kicked him out of the house,
Yes,
filed a restraining order,
that's correct, sir.
and then put him in a hotel
Yes,
for 3 to 4 weeks.
correct.
And you had a list of conditions for him to abide by before he was allowed back in the house.
That's correct.
What were those list of conditions?
Oh, there was quite a few. It was a whole page, 8 to 10 maybe things. One was to continue medication. 2 was to not have any illicit drugs in the house. 3 was not to talk abusively. I think we had on there to find a job. I think we had, I don't recall all of them. There were a number of them, and we had Brandon sign that piece of paper before we let him back into our home.
And before you let him back into your home, he was actually doing a pretty good job filling those conditions.
Well, let's see. The first one was, what did I say? Medication, right? So most mornings it was me giving him the medication in front of me, taking it, watching him swallow it.
Okay.
So, yes, to that.
All right.
Item 2.
He was looking for a job.
No, that's not item 2. That was down further. Number 2, sir, was about making sure that he was respectful and not belligerent with his actions, the outbursts, the anger.
Well, I thought number 2 was don't take drugs.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm mixing up 3 with 2. So 2 is no illicit drugs in the house. And to our knowledge, for the 2 years that Brandon lived with us, sir, from 2013, about September, so after he got off playing ball with Princeton, West Virginia, all the way to September 2015, sir, drugs were not in our house, except on a couple occasions that I had found them earlier in 2014. So yes, he was following that guideline, sir.
Okay. And it wasn't not to do drugs, but just don't bring him in our house.
Right, no drugs in the house.
Okay.
No.
And then number 3 was don't be verbally abusive to you or Michael.
Right, to be respectful. We didn't understand at the time that it wasn't Brandon. You know, this is Brandon. This is his brain disorder on top of him. It was his disease, his brain disorder, that were the outbursts, that were the belligerent activity and the verbiage that he would use. But at the time, we didn't know that. We didn't know that he couldn't control that. So yes, that was on there, sir, and he abided by that to a point, and then it got worse. It manifested.
Okay, but he was abiding by it, and you allowed him to be back in your house.
Yes, at that point in time, after 3 weeks, he had abided by that. He was not belligerent during those 3 weeks.
Okay, and then number 4, he was looking for a
Sir,
job.
I don't remember all of them. There were 8 or 9, I think. Sir, do you have a copy of it that I can refresh my memory?
You just said number 4 was find a job.
Oh, okay. So find a job. Okay. Thanks for reminding me. We had hoped, we were praying that maybe he could get some type of job to make him, you know, a little motivated, a little incentivized to maybe leave the house other than just going to the gas station or going to Carl's Jr. to get food,
Right, but
or get cigarettes.
you were satisfied that he was at least looking for a
No,
job.
he did not do that one,
Okay,
sir.
so what you're saying is, irrespective of him fulfilling the requirements, you allowed him back in?
Sir, we moved him back into the house, and some of the things on the list he couldn't fulfill until he was back into the house, and a job was one of them.
Okay, and were you assisting him in doing that?
Yeah, we tried to give him ideas, you know, looking at the paper or online and thinking what's something he might enjoy doing.
And Brandon, he could operate a computer, correct?
As far as I know, sir.
Okay. He could drive a car.
That was questionable. He could safely. It got to a point where no, he could not safely drive a car.
Was his license ever revoked because of...
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, okay. And then he could function like a normal person, correct?
No, he could not, sir.
Okay. When you were in talking to Investigator Binion, did you tell Investigator Binion that Brandon could operate a computer, drive a car, and function like a normal person?
At times, and before his disease, yes. Yeah, and after his disease, there was a switch that happened, and he no longer knew right from wrong. He no longer was able to focus to be able to make good decisions. I said those things. I'm not sure what page they're on, sir. But yes, we raised our kids to tell the truth and be honest. And there was a flip.
So
there was a point where he couldn't.
You all right, ma'am, or do you?
I only have two questions.
Can you answer a couple more questions, or do you need a break?
How many questions?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
How many questions?
Just a couple more questions.
Okay.
So Investigator Binion said, I mean, minus today, meaning the murders. Would you say that Brandon could function like a normal person? And your response was yes, absolutely.
At times.
Well,
yes.
You didn't qualify that. You said yes, absolutely. You didn't say at times.
I think in my mind, I felt at times, yes, in my mind. Yeah, I may not have verbalized it, sir.
Would it be kind of important information to tell the investigator that, well, actually Brandon couldn't function like a normal person at many times?
Objection argumentative.
And, all right, that's good.
Can you redirect, Mr. Jones?
No, thank you.
All right, witness,
Yes.
she excused.
Yes,
You're excused, thank you, ma'am. Additional witnesses or evidence?
Subject to the exhibits, we rest.
All right, is there any rebuttal or sur-rebuttal evidence?
No, subject to addition of exhibits.
Right. All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our afternoon recess. We're going to just go over the exhibits that were utilized during the penalty phase. And then when you come back in, I will pre-instruct you on the law, and then we'll hear closing arguments phase of the trial. So, remind all of you not to discuss the facts of this case amongst